Welcome back, my friends. Today we're going to be reloading some 308 Winchester. You saw one of our recent videos here. We were playing around with some CFE223 and the Hornady 150 grain full metal jacket boat tail. We had just picked a random middle charge there out of the book and had pretty mediocre results. The chronograph numbers weren't horrible. We had a standard deviation of 15, which isn't bad with the random ball powder charge, but the groups on the paper weren't more of a group, it was more like a shotgun pattern. So today we're going to be working up closer to our maximum charge and see if we can find a little group along the way. So we're going to be using CFE223. We have our ABM head stamp brass with Federal 210 primers in there. And once again, the Hornady 150 grain full metal jacket. We've got our redding dies out here. Everything's actually sized and prepped right now. We're just going to be adding powder and seating our bullets. And today we'll be playing around with the Frankfurt Arsenal aluminum powder funnel kit. Just picked that up a little while back, so we'll be testing it out here and see how it works with our CFE223. So stay tuned and we'll get to talking about our powder and where we're going with that. Here we have our powder. That's Hodgdon CFE223. The CFE means copper fouling eraser, which is supposed to aid in the prevention of copper building up so you don't have to scrub out that copper fouling after you blasted, several trillion rounds and had copper fouling through your barrel. Who knows if that actually works or not, but it's FMJ approved. It says that we're ideal for cartridges ranging from the 204 Ruger, 223, 22 250, and 308 Winchester. And of course, we're going to get our data from Hodgdon.com itself. But first, a real quick look. As you can see, it is a very fine spherical ball powder. Some parts are more spherical and some parts are more flattened, but it flows just like water out of your metering device. So anyways, speaking of our data from Hodgdon's website, they list a maximum charge of 51.5 grains with a Nosler boat tail, and we were down at 50 grains because Hornady suggests that with that bullet, you can only go up to 49.6 grains. And we can see that's almost 2 grains difference here between the two sources. So I first went with the 50 grains thinking that we would be pretty safe there. Turns out we were. No pressure signs. And here's our velocity numbers. We had 2964, extreme spread of 48, and our standard deviation was 15 feet per second there. So again, no pressure there. So we're going to be working up in 3/10 increments, starting at 50.3, 50.6, 50.9, 51.2, and 51.5 grains all the way up to the Hodgdon maximum there. And if we remember back to our last video, 50 grains did have a considerable amount of case fill. So we're going to work up here and see how those bullets are going to actually seat. So since our brass is all primed and ready to go, again, all we're doing is throwing our powder. So I'm going to get our RCBS Uniflow dialed in to about 50 grains, and then we'll just trickle up that rest of the charge once we get there. And I like to have a little funnel handy. This just helps you get it all into the Uniflow or your other powder measure, as well as back into the bottle once you're done. And we're definitely not going to need this much powder, but I like to have a good weighted column there so it's, nice and uniform every time you do it, rather than being up to here, and then as you run out, your stack will get lighter and lighter, thus throwing less powder because there's a different weight on the column pushing down into the measure. Meh. Big long explanation for keep your powder flow nice and full. So I'm not sure what powder we had last or where it's dialed in or whatnot, so we'll just throw a couple of them to get her nice and primed, and then I'll just measure one here real quick. But 50 grains of ball powder here is a pretty significant amount. Looks like we're at just under 33, so we'll come out a few turns. And I have no idea what 1 turn equals here, but that was 4 turns. so we can do some math and see how much one turn equaled. So 4 turns got me from 33 to 42. I need about that many more, so 1, 2, we'll just start at 3. Should be right under 50 grains here. And we're actually at 50.7, so we'll come back just a little bit there. And this will be good enough to get us going and trickle to our charges. And again, we'll do it several times and make sure our powder column has settled in sufficiently. All right, 49.8, that's pretty good. So we can just trickle up those last few tenths or grain out of our trickler. And our trickler is going to be the RCBS powder trickler. And we'll just get him filled up here. And now we have enough in our trickler to just get that last, half grain or a couple tenths from the thrower there on our scale. Okay, so we've got our scale zeroed here. And actually, I'm going to go for our maximum charge, which is going to be 51.5. So we'll throw one of those, get it dialed in, and then actually see how we're going to seat that bullet, whether or not we have to go up to, like 2.8 mag length or the 2.7, which was the book data. And then just trickle up by hand here real quick. Yep, too quick. And my wife got me this cute little spoon at the Hobby Lobby or something for cooking, or I don't know what the hell, but I said that, wow, that'd be nice and non-staticky so I could scoop powder with. So here we are using it. Thanks, wife. And we'll just put a little back in there to get her to where we need to be. Dummy, you're not doing too well at this powder today. Okay, we'll let it settle again just to see, and then we'll also verify on the electronic scale. Okay, that one looks just about perfect. Now that we have our first powder charge weighed out, we're going to try this nice little aluminum funnel here and pick out our proper insert. And that's just got a nice little O-ring fitting there, so that should snug up very well. But let's try it out here. All right, very nice. All right, that feels nice and smooth. Let's see how it works. All right, so here we are. It actually fits on the case pretty well. You can see it's been beveled out with a little lip there to fit on the actual case neck itself. And if my loading block were more stable, this pretty much levels itself out if your case is sitting nice and flush and snug in your loading block. But yeah, it's pretty easy to just move around from case to case as you're pouring out your charges. Well, let's see how it actually works on this very first one. Wow. Excellent. No staticky pieces floating around or anything. Just little bits of the little nitrocellulose or whatever comes out of the powder. But once that gets nice and kind of cured or coated, we shouldn't be seeing any more of that. So very cool. Let's check our case fill with 51.5 grains. So it seems like we're up there pretty well. I think there's maybe a little bit of this shoulder left as far as case capacity, but we're pretty much up into the neck. I'm expecting for this to be a compressed load, so let's check it out here once we see the bullet. Here we are up at the RCBS rock chucker with our Redding standard seating die there. I think it has a crimp function if you were down far enough, but I'm not using that. And here's our micrometer insert. Should work pretty well. But I've got her backed out now before we get this set up. All right, let's see if we even engage it. Not even close. Okay, coming down. And actually, there it is. So now I'm going to turn this until I can see the 0. All right. And we're going to have to come down a considerable amount. Alright, probably another full turn. Looks like we're right above our cannulure right now, so let's take a measurement. So here we're at about 2.75-ish and a little bit more room before we actually get to the cannulure. We're not compressed yet. We're going to come down to 2.70 like we were in the previous testing and see how that works for our maximum charge here. And with our micrometer, that means to just come down by 0.5, which should be that. Hopefully, let's give it a shot. Felt like a nice smooth pull of the handle. And we're at 2.72. And we might actually be compressed now, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but let's run it again and make sure we're nice and concentric. Okay, still 2.5 thousandths over, but let me load up another one and we'll see how that one feels. And if we're just a little bit compressed, it could be pushing it back out a little bit and we might have to work down a little further on there. So let's try another and see what it looks like. Let's get a nice shot of this here funnel action for you. Oh yeah. See how them balls just bounce right off. No static. Falls right in there. Perfect. And I am really liking that little lip cut out there. I was hearing some of the negative reviews for the Lyman set. I don't think had that nice little step in there. So they wouldn't fit quite perfectly, but this one seems to be pretty nice and level once you get it on there. It's where it needs to be. So no complaints there. Well, let's see if this second one is going to be troublesome or if we can just come down our 2 thousandths. Very smooth, nice, excellent. That's what we're looking for. Let's take a measurement, see how close it is with our last one. So we're still about 2 to 3 thousandths off. Let's come down 2 thousandths and we'll call her good. And we'll rerun this first one. 2.7 on the freaking money, look at that. And this one could, of course, just be a variation in the bullet length itself. And I know we need a comparator, but yeah, within 1 thousandths or 2 of overall length is totally fine with me. Looks pretty good from here, so we'll just keep that as our setting. So I got another, 23 cases to charge, so I'll let you know if anything strange happens or if we need to adjust with our smaller charges. But again, I don't think we're compressed here, so no worries about that. So let's go ahead and dump some powder, and I'll get back with you here before we head out to the range. Well, everything's been loaded up, and we've tested them through the case gauge. As you can see, in and out, smooth as butter. I believe our top charge was just barely compressed, but that didn't affect our overall length at all. No excessive crunchiness, but anyways, let's get out to the range and hopefully shoot some pretty damn good groups with this stuff. Let's get her going. Okay guys, and we're out at the range. Time to test out our first load. 50.3 grains here. And we're out at 100 yards. It is fairly windy, coming from about 10 o'clock. Here we go.
3025. 3002. 2980. 2984. 2999.
So here we are with our first group. It was 50.3 grains. We had an average of 29.98, ES of 45, and an SD of 16. So we can see here quite the vertical stringing, probably 4 inches here, and then one off to the left there. So yeah, not too pretty. 4 inches with our first charge of 50.3 grains there. And let's get on to our next charge of 50.6.
2,983. 2,967. 3,001. 2,984. 2,972.
Okay, so there was our second charge with 50.6 grains. We had an average 29.81, extreme spread of 34, and an SD of 12 feet per second. And it seems like we went from that vertical stringing to sort of a horizontal dispersion, and we're still at probably about 2.5 to 3 inches going this direction, I do believe. So let's see if we can tighten it up with our next charge at 50.9.
2,984. 2,979. 2,980. 2,998.
Okay, so we're not looking too hot here. 50.9 grains of the CFE223, and we're probably at 5 inches here. The first couple were all right here, so I was thinking, okay, cool, we're starting to tighten it up. And then shots 4 and 5 just way out wide. They felt like good shots. I don't think I pulled anything. I felt like I was doing my job, but it just looks like this charge is not the one for this bullet and powder combination. So on to the next one of 51.2 grains.
All right, well, our second camera died, so I'm going to have to read the velocities from the chronograph and write them down as we go so we can record off the phone here. So let's go with our next charge of 51.2, and we're starting to get up there in pressure, but let's give it a shot here. $29.95. 3,027. 'Wow, that felt like a good shot, and it's about 3 inches high. And that one was 30.13. 3,035. Yeah, that shot was about 4 inches high as well. 30.44.
And here we are back with our fourth target, 51.2 grains. And we're back at this vertical dispersion sort of thing, similar to our first charge up here. So 51.2 grains, average of 30.21, extreme spread of 49 and standard deviation of 17 there. So over the last 4 charges, we've went up 9/10 of a grain, and we've hardly gained any velocity. And I'm actually starting to see pressure signs on my brass, and we called it here. So I was working with these charges over here. This is the first, second, third, and fourth. And our first charge, we've got a slight little ejector mark here, and we can see our primers are getting slightly flattened at this point. We still have a little bit of a roundness to the edge right around the lip there, but we are getting smears on our brass with our first charge, and primers are starting to flatten. This continues all the way on up, and this is the 4th charge where I decided to stop, but you can see these ejector smears getting quite intense. There's no burrs or anything yet, but we can see that this was getting worse and worse throughout each of the charges. And for absolutely no gain in velocity, I didn't feel necessary to go up to our last charge to shoot another shotgun blast at the paper, wasting our components, our powder, so on and so forth. Especially when none of this is promising. I really doubt this last charge is just gonna really just pull it together. And furthermore, it was only about 85 degrees on this day rather than 105 like it was over the summer. So if I were to take that load out at 51.5 grains at 105 degrees, that could be freaking horrible. So we're just gonna scrap that. We're done. No more of the CFE223 going in this direction. I had a couple suggestions from you guys, and all the data starts back at near 47 grains. So we are way past that, and you know, maybe this bullet doesn't like moving 3,000 feet per second. Maybe it's better at running about 2,800, maybe 2,750, whatever. Somewhere in there. We're gonna go down the other direction with our powder charges next here, folks. I'm gonna go back into our manuals, figure out our starting charge. We're gonna try several groups under our 50 grain charge that we started with. So on to the next one, folks. Like I said, we're gonna go lower in charge this time. See if we can hit the 2,800 feet per second mark, which is where most 150 grains are clocked out for your factory ammo and so on and so forth. So maybe we're just pushing them too hot. Maybe it's a too slow burning of a powder, but we're gonna keep trying anyways. So from here, we're gonna go with a lower powder charge, like I said, 17 times now. And we'll come back and test her again, folks. I'm gonna pull these bullets out and reuse that brass, but other than that, we'll just keep on trucking here, folks. Anyways, if you enjoy this sort of content, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're not already. You can help support us over on patreon.com/dummyround. Thanks again for hanging out, guys, and we will see you in the next video. Have a good one.